Well, in South Florida now, officials are working to eliminate an invasive species with furry robots. Yeah, these are solar-powered bunnies. They look, they move, they even smell like the real animal.
At dawn in the Florida Everglades, the swamp lies still beneath a veil of mist. A rabbit twitches in the grass until you realize it's no ordinary prey. Beneath its fur hum wires, sensors, and a solar-powered motor. Just beyond, a massive Burmese python glides closer, drawn to the heat of the decoy.
Deploying robotic rabbits to help capture invasive Burmese pythons in the Everglades.
For decades, Florida has battled an invasion of Burmese pythons that has decimated native wildlife, nearly wiping out marsh rabbits, raccoons, even deer. Hunters and even bounty competitions have barely made a dent in the exploding snake population. Now, in a bold twist, Florida wildlife officials have deployed hundreds of robotic rabbits to lure the elusive predators and remove them for good. But here's the question: will these machines finally outsmart the pythons, or will the snakes adapt in ways no one expected? How we got here. The Florida Everglades is one of the most unique ecosystems in the United States, a vast wetland of sawgrass marshes, cypress forests, and winding waterways, once alive with raccoons, bobcats, marsh rabbits, and wading birds. But in the late 20th century, a predator unlike any other took root: the Burmese python. It wasn't migration, it was a human mistake. In the 1980s and 90s, Burmese pythons were imported as exotic pets. Hatchlings fit in our hand, but soon grew into muscular 15 to 20-foot predators that required massive enclosures and live prey. Many owners underestimated the snake's size and strength, and some were intentionally released when they became too large to handle. Others escaped during disasters like Hurricane Andrew in 1992, which destroyed reptile warehouses in South Florida and unleashed their occupants into the swamp. The Everglades proved to be a paradise. With no natural predators and a warm climate mirroring Southeast Asia, the snakes thrived. A single female Burmese python can lay between 50 and 100 eggs each year. Biologists believe tens of thousands now roam South Florida's wetlands. The ecological impact has been staggering. Native small mammal populations have collapsed in areas heavily occupied by pythons. Studies conducted by the U.S. Geological Survey and the University of Florida revealed that raccoon and opossum sightings in certain areas dropped by more than 90%. Marsh rabbits, once abundant, have nearly vanished from many regions in the Everglades. Bobcats, foxes, and even deer and alligators are not safe. There are documented cases of pythons preying on adult deer and even challenging alligators for dominance in the marsh. The entire food chain has buckled under their advance. For hunters, the fight has been nearly impossible. The Everglades spans almost 1.5 million acres of dense, swampy terrain, where pythons vanish into mud and reeds. They're nocturnal, masters of camouflage, and reproduce faster than they can be caught. Removal programs, bounties, and even competitions have made headlines, but barely dented the population. The threat extends beyond the Everglades. There is growing concern that with warming temperatures, their territory could stretch farther north in Florida and potentially into other southern states. Agencies have already spent millions on removal programs, public outreach, and research to manage the python crisis. But every captured snake feels like a temporary victory. This is no longer just a local nuisance, it's one of America's most stubborn wildlife crises. And that reality has forced Florida into experiments that sound less like biology and more like science fiction. What began with hunters and bounty checks has now led to an astonishing new strategy, one that turns the marsh rabbit, the python's favorite prey, into the blueprint for a weapon made not of flesh and blood, but of sensors, wires, and solar-powered circuits. Before robotic rabbits entered the fight, the state unleashed hunters and prize money into the swamp with shocking lessons: people, prizes, and the limits of the bounty approach. Long before Florida experimented with high-tech solutions, the state tried almost every conventional method imaginable to rid the Everglades of Burmese pythons. From professional bounty hunters to amateur competitions, wildlife agencies poured money, manpower, and energy at a predator that simply refuses to yield. What they discovered is part cautionary tale, part spectacle. In 2013, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched the first-ever Python Challenge, a public hunting competition. The event invited ordinary citizens, provided basic training on snake identification and safety, and sent them out into the swamps for a limited period. Cash prizes were awarded for the longest python and for the most snakes captured. The event made international headlines: hunters on airboats, flashlights cutting through the night, machetes ready for strikes. It looked like a reality show set in the swamp. But behind the hype, the results were sobering. The first challenge attracted about 1,600 participants from nearly every state, and together they captured just 68 snakes. For a population believed to number in the tens of thousands, that result barely made a dent. Still, the program continued year after year, with bigger prizes and more experienced hunters. In one recent year, the top hunter captured over 40 snakes during the competition, earning a significant cash award. Another hunter famously captured a python over 17 feet long, a testament to the snake's alarming size and the dedication of those working to control them. These events served a dual purpose. They removed some snakes and raised public awareness of the python threat. Yet even at its most successful, the challenge removed only a fraction of the total population. Recognizing the limitations of short-term competitions, the state invested in a more sustained effort. The South Florida Water Management District launched the Python Elimination Program in 2017, hiring contracted professional hunters. This program aimed to keep experienced hunters in the field year-round. Hunters earned an hourly wage plus additional payments for every python they captured, with bonuses for particularly large snakes or those found guarding eggs. Over the years, thousands of pythons were removed from the Everglades. Despite these efforts, the numbers continued to work against the hunters. The Everglades spans more than 1.5 million acres, a maze of wetlands, tree islands, and dense vegetation where snakes can disappear with ease. The snake's nocturnal habits and perfect camouflage meant that even seasoned hunters often spent hours searching with no success. Costs ballooned too. Paying contractors for endless hours of searching put a strain on budgets already competing with other conservation projects. Technological tools emerged to improve success rates, such as the use of radio transmitters implanted in captured snakes, turning them into Judith snakes to lead hunters to others during breeding season. This tactic proved to be effective at finding clusters of snakes, but was still labor-intensive. And then came the most frustrating problem of all. Progress bred harder challenges. The easiest to catch snakes were removed first, leaving behind survivors deep in the most inaccessible corners of the swamp. Each capture demanded more time, more effort, and more money. By the late 2010s, it became clear that hunting alone could not solve the crisis. For every handful of snakes pulled from the Everglades, breeding females ensured the population rebounded. The cycle was endless. That realization forced Florida officials to get creative. If hunters couldn't keep up, perhaps other tools could tip the balance. The challenge became finding ways to draw the snakes out of hiding or to track them where human eyes failed. This shift in perspective, born from years of frustration, opened the door to experimental methods. First came detector dogs, trained to sniff out the elusive predators in the swamp, and later, in an even bolder step, came the surprising introduction of robotic rabbits. Dogs in the swamp. This isn't the first time Florida has turned to unusual tactics in the battle against Burmese pythons. Long before the idea of robotic rabbits hit the drawing board, wildlife managers tried an ally that seemed far more natural: dogs. In 2020, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, launched a pilot program with a team of specially trained detector dogs. Their mission was simple in theory, but daunting in practice: use their powerful noses to locate pythons hidden in the vast expanse of South Florida's wetlands. Two dogs led the charge: a black Labrador named Truman and a pointy-eared Dutch Shepherd named Eleanor. They weren't ordinary pets. They had been trained for months to recognize the scent of live Burmese pythons, down to the subtle musk the snakes leave behind in grass and mud. When working the field, the dogs wore GPS collars and worked on long leads, guiding their handlers toward scent trails invisible to the human eye. The results were immediate. In their very first month on duty, Truman and Eleanor helped track down and capture 4 large pythons. Over time, their tally grew into the dozens. What astonished researchers wasn't just the number of snakes found, but the efficiency. Dogs could locate pythons in minutes, where human searchers might spend hours. By the end of the program's first year, the detector dogs were credited with finding pythons in areas where biologists had all but given up hope. But as with every python control effort, challenges emerged. The Everglades is no easy workplace. Dogs had to navigate sharp sawgrass, deep water, and scorching heat. Handlers often carried special boots and cooling vests for their four-legged partners. And the risk was real. Burmese pythons are powerful constrictors. Though handlers kept the dogs at a safe distance during captures, the danger of a snake striking was always present. Another problem was scale. A handful of dogs could help locate pythons, but the Everglades spans more than 1.5 million acres. Deploying enough canine teams to make a lasting impact would require enormous resources and non-stop field work. As effective as Truman and Eleanor were, they couldn't keep pace with a population of snakes that lays tens of thousands of eggs each year. Still, the detector dog program provided an invaluable proof of concept. It showed that creative, even unconventional methods could yield real results. More importantly, it reinforced a sobering lesson. No single tactic would ever be enough. Hunting, bounties, Judas snakes, and even canine units chipped away at the problem, but none could come close to erasing it. The dog's success also carried a symbolic weight. For years, it had seemed as though humans were always one step behind the snakes, but watching a Labrador pull its handler straight toward a hidden python gave wildlife managers something rare: hope. That hope, however, was temporary. For every python captured with canine help, dozens more remained unseen in the reeds. As impressive as the dogs were, they were only a partial answer to a much bigger question. It was proof that no single tactic would ever be enough, and so the search for answers pushed into even more controversial territory. If dogs could track snakes by scent, perhaps the snake's favorite prey could be used to draw them in. That idea, unsettling at first, led to experiments with live marsh rabbits and eventually to something no one could have predicted: the birth of robotic decoys. The genesis of the rabbit idea. When traditional methods fell short, scientists turned to something far more controversial, and it pushed the battle for the Everglades into darker territory. Among the many species devastated by the python invasion, marsh rabbits suffered one of the steepest declines. Once abundant throughout the Everglades, these small mammals virtually disappeared from python-heavy areas. For scientists searching for an edge in the battle, marsh rabbits were more than victims, they were the potential key to turning the tables on the snakes. The logic was straightforward, if unsettling. If pythons were already targeting marsh rabbits in the wild, then introducing them as live bait might lure snakes into areas where they could be captured. By setting up enclosed pens near water or along swampy trails, live rabbits were placed as decoys while biologists monitored the sites. Early tests showed promise. In one study, a small number of rabbits placed in specially designed pens attracted more than 20 pythons over a period of just a few months. This proved what scientists suspected all along. The presence of rabbits could concentrate python activity in specific locations, making the snakes easier to detect and remove. For desperate wildlife managers, it was a breakthrough. However, using live animals as lures brought serious challenges. Caring for the rabbits in harsh wetland conditions required continuous oversight. The animals needed food, water, and shelter to survive the heat, rain, and other predators. Maintaining these conditions was labor-intensive and costly. Worse still, many of the rabbits never survived. Conservationists questioned the morality of putting live creatures in harm's way as sacrificial bait. Even though the goal was to protect entire ecosystems, the brutal optics of allowing terrified rabbits to be killed by snakes sparked controversy. Animal welfare organizations voiced strong objections, calling the use of live rabbits in field experiments inhumane. Even among wildlife managers and scientists, there was discomfort about the approach. While effective to a degree, the method was not sustainable on a large scale, both from a practical and an ethical standpoint. The idea of sacrificing one species to save another left a bitter taste. These concerns ultimately led to the discontinuation of widespread live rabbit baiting. And yet, those grim trials revealed something crucial. The strategy itself worked. The experiments had demonstrated that rabbits, or at least the illusion of rabbits, could lure pythons more effectively than any hunter or bounty program. What scientists needed was a way to keep the bait without the blood. This challenge inspired a new wave of innovation. Engineers and wildlife specialists began to ask a radical question. What if the decoys didn't have to be alive at all? This shift in thinking marked a turning point. The focus moved from traditional trapping to technological decoys. By studying the behavioral triggers of pythons and combining them with modern robotics and sensor technology, scientists believed they could create a sustainable tool that would revolutionize python removal efforts. The live rabbit experiments were a difficult but necessary step in that evolution. They revealed the potential power of targeted lures in controlling an elusive predator and highlighted the importance of innovation in wildlife management. More importantly, they underscored the ethical boundaries that future solutions would need to respect. Ultimately, the lessons learned from the controversial use of live rabbits laid the foundation for one of Florida's boldest conservation strategies yet. The transition from living bait to artificial decoys would open the door to the creation of robotic rabbits designed to lure the pythons without causing harm to other creatures. This fusion of biology and technology represented a new chapter in the ongoing fight to reclaim the Everglades from one of the most damaging invasive species in modern history. Enter the robo-rabbits. The idea of robotic rabbits may sound like a quirky invention from a science fiction story. Yet in the battle against Burmese pythons, it has become one of Florida's most innovative and promising tools yet. When wildlife officials decided to move forward with the idea, they knew the devices had to be more than simple decoys. They needed to mimic enough of a rabbit's features to draw in a python while also serving as reliable field equipment in one of the toughest environments in the country. The result was the robo-rabbit. These decoys are designed to replicate not just the appearance of marsh rabbits, but also their most important biological cues. Scientists worked with engineers to build a life-sized rabbit model made of durable synthetic materials that could withstand heat, humidity, and water exposure. The decoys are covered with a realistic fur-like coating to resemble a marsh rabbit's coloring, though scientists know that to a python, appearances matter less than other signals. What makes the robo-rabbits irresistible is their internal heating system. Tiny heaters create a heat signature, replicating the body heat of live prey. This heat signature is crucial for attracting snakes that might not even be able to see the decoy clearly in the dark or through thick vegetation. To strengthen the illusion, each robo is also equipped with scent emitters that release chemical compounds similar to the natural scent of rabbits. These scents help lure snakes from a distance and make the decoy irresistible once the python gets closer. Some units even produce subtle movements such as ear twitches or slight body shifts powered by small electric motors, enough to convince a hunting python that it has encountered a living creature. But these devices aren't just bait. Each unit carries a compact camera system, streaming live video to central monitoring stations. The system allows wildlife managers to keep watch over the decoys and respond quickly when a python appears. Some models use artificial intelligence software capable of recognizing the distinctive patterns of a python's scales or its slithering motion. When detected, the system can instantly alert field teams, giving hunters a chance to move in before the snake slips away. To operate in the remote Everglades, where electricity and infrastructure are scarce, the robo-rabbits rely on solar panels and rechargeable batteries. This design allows them to remain active for weeks at a time without constant maintenance. The devices are anchored in place within protective pens that keep them stable and also prevent non-target animals from interfering with the equipment. The pilot program, launched by the South Florida Water Management District and its partners, deployed around 120 robo-rabbits across key python hotspots in the Everglades, especially areas where mammal populations had been hit hardest. It was a cautious rollout, designed to test whether the decoys could survive the elements and, more importantly, attract snakes consistently. Unexpected results, future impact, and the road ahead. The Robotic Rabbit program is still in its early stages, but even the first months of field testing have brought cautious optimism. Wildlife officials report that the decoys have already helped them intercept several large Burmese pythons, including egg-bearing females that likely would have continued to evade hunters. For scientists used to spending hours in the field without a single sighting, this was nothing short of shocking. One biologist admitted, "It's the first time in years we felt the snakes were coming to us instead of the other way around." Preliminary data suggests that targeted lures, like the robo-rabbits, can increase the efficiency of removal efforts by concentrating snakes in specific areas and reducing the hours spent on fruitless searches. While the total number of pythons removed through this program is still small compared to the overall population, the technology has introduced a crucial new advantage: time. The ability to locate and capture them faster may slow their expansion and limit further damage to native wildlife. That was unexpected enough. But what truly stunned researchers were the reactions caught on camera. Some pythons struck the decoys with lightning speed, coiling around them as if they were alive. Others seemed to hesitate, circling the rabbits for long minutes as if sensing something was different, behavior rarely seen in the wild. A few even abandoned the attack entirely, retreating into the swamp. This left scientists wondering, had the snakes already begun to adapt? Was it possible that these invasive predators, so quick to dominate the Everglades, could learn to distinguish real prey from machines? The possibility is both fascinating and frightening, and it has made the program's future even more uncertain. Still, the unexpected cuts both ways. Officials had not anticipated how much extra data the robo-rabbits would generate. Each decoy's camera and sensors created a real-time map of python movement, revealing hunting trails, preferred habitats, and even new nesting areas. This unplanned surveillance breakthrough may turn out to be just as valuable as the captures themselves. Scaling up will not be simple. Each unit costs about $4,000, and maintaining hundreds or even thousands of them would require significant funding, logistical planning, and dedicated teams to monitor the data they collect. Yet supporters of the project argue that the cost of doing nothing, both economically and ecologically, would be far greater. Engineers continue to refine the devices to withstand extreme weather, resist damage from curious animals, and operate with more efficient solar systems. Scientists are experimenting with improvements to the scent emitters and heat signatures to make the decoys even more convincing. There is also interest in integrating drone support to provide aerial views of active sites flagged by the robotic lures, further speeding up response times. The unexpected lessons of the pilot program are clear. Robotic rabbits don't just catch snakes, they expose the delicate balance between predator instinct and human innovation. They have opened new doors for conservation, but they have also raised unsettling questions. What happens when nature begins to adapt to machines? Could technology ever fully outsmart evolution? For now, Florida's robo-rabbits offer a glimmer of hope in a struggle that has often seemed unwinnable. The Burmese python invasion has transformed the Everglades for decades, and reversing its effects will require persistence, creativity, and significant resources. Every capture means dozens of eggs that won't hatch, and every day the robo-rabbits hold their ground is a day the Everglades gets a little breathing room. The battle isn't over, but in a fight this long and lopsided, we'll take this small win for now. Whether this experiment becomes the turning point or just another chapter in the long battle against the Burmese python is a question no one can yet answer. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next.